Up next, we've got the latest hit from Veeam. It's climbing charts everywhere, and soon it's going to climb right into your heart. Here it is.
Well, dang. Ransomware had my data all jacked up. If only I had secure backup. Then I met you, Veeam, my AWS backup dream team. Yeah.
Good morning, AWS, and welcome to the AWS Morning Brief. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn, and what a week it was. Most notably, serverless hero Forrest Brazil has taken a job at Google Cloud as their head of content. What a miss on AWS's part. He is effectively all the good parts that they would get by hiring me without all of the very blindingly obvious drawbacks. I don't understand it. I really don't. But I do know that I'm much more interested in Google Cloud as a direct result. And of course, our congratulations go to Forrest. Now let's see what AWS got up to, and hang on, it's a doozy. A thing that is not particularly AWS-centric is Azure's Chaos DB vulnerability. Apparently, customers could have had their data in Cosmos DB accessed by third parties, and Microsoft says they have no evidence of this, but that doesn't mean much. Does that mean they don't have logs? They're not telling people. This is not good for AWS or GCP or anyone else. It is good for no one, because this is where companies are going to do the enterprise groundhog thing, and now we're all going to see 6 more years of data centers. This is terrible. Microsoft needs to get better at storytelling around this immediately. IPv6 endpoints are now available for the Amazon EC2 Instance Metadata Service, Amazon TimeSync Service, and Amazon VPC DNS Server. The Amazon TimeSync Service and I have a simple relationship. If they mention it in a release, I will talk about it. I adore that thing, even though it's not really well known. Amazon Data Lifecycle Manager now automates deprecation of Amazon Machine Images, or AMIs. But if it does that, why not just call it Amazon Google? The new Amazon DynamoDB console is now your default experience to help you manage data and resources more easily. The DynamoDB service page in the console now has a different default look and feel than the other 400 service pages do, because they all have their own distinct looks and feels, most of them awful. Amazon Elasticache for Redis now supports auto-scaling. Oh, hell yes! Thanks, AWS, you can close out my feature request ticket at an old employer that was opened in 2012. Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, VPC, customers can now resize their prefix list. AWS might not remember what happened when they launched a new availability zone in US East 1, but my large client couldn't use it because they'd already allocated all of their address space in the private range they were using under the assumption that there would only be 5 AZs. But I remember that. Oh, do I ever. This update does not fix that problem, but I just wanted to remind you about it. Introducing AWS Backup Audit Manager, which is an awesome release with a terrible name. It's not an audit manager. It's a validator that your backups can be restored from. The better name would be AWS Backup Restore Guarantor. AWS Database Migration Service now supports Redis as a target. It doesn't support MemoryDB because doing so would be unconscionable. AWS IoT Core now supports MQTT retained messages, and another entrant in the free database tier. This holds 64 megabytes of data per AWS account at no charge. IAM Access Analyzer helps you generate IAM policies based on access activity found in your organization trail. Oh my God. When I tried to do this, back when the Access Analyzer first came out, I ran into inscrutable errors and thought that I had busted something in my account that was causing it. I'm just going to sit here and be pissed off while I consider my response. Accelerating your migration to AWS. Here's a long blog post that AWS authored as to how you can hurry the hell up and give them your money faster. Augmenting VMware Cloud on AWS workloads with native AWS services. I'm pretty sure that's called migrating off of VMware Cloud on AWS. Announcing the latest AWS heroes, August 2021. The newest AWS heroes are announced. Basically, you only lose hero status if you take a job at Amazon or at one of its competitors. But wait, isn't that every company? How are there any heroes at all? Introducing CloudWatch Container Insights Prometheus support with AWS distro for OpenTelemetry on Amazon ECS and Amazon EKS. And there is nothing that I'm going to say here, absolutely nothing, that is more ridiculous than that headline. I'm serious. Listen to it one more time. Introducing CloudWatch Container Insights Prometheus support with AWS distro for OpenTelemetry on Amazon ECS and Amazon EKS. My God. Real-world cryptographic verification with Amazon QLDB. QLDB is one of those services I'm not quite smart enough to fully understand, but what I know of it is blockchain without the hype combined with solving a business problem. And that's compelling. Deploy a Docker application on AWS Elastic Beanstalk with GitLab. Is this the 18th way to run a container on AWS? Recognize celebrities and images and videos using Amazon Recognition. I have already opened a support ticket with AWS since this service fails to recognize me as a celebrity. Your move, AWS. This episode is sponsored in part by our friends at Chaos Search. You could run Elasticsearch or Elastic Cloud or OpenSearch as they're calling it now, or a self-hosted Elk stack. But why? Chaos Search gives you the same API you've come to know and tolerate, along with unlimited data retention and no data movement. Just throw your data into S3 and proceed from there as you would expect. This is great for IT operations folks, for app performance monitoring, cybersecurity. If you're using Elasticsearch, consider not running Elasticsearch. They're also available now in the AWS Marketplace if you'd prefer not to go direct and have half of whatever you pay them count toward your EDP commitment. Discover what companies like Klarna, Equifax, Armor Security, and Blackboard already have. To learn more, visit chaossearch.io and tell them I sent you just so you can see them facepalm yet again. Meet Aria, the first New Zealand English accented voice for Amazon Polly. Includes limited Te Reo Maori support. Only AWS would release a voice that cannot sing and name it Aria. AWS Artist Series, Animating Noah. Some AWS blog posts are ridiculous. Others are incredibly overcomplicated. Still others make zero sense. But this one is visually beautiful. Amplify Video now supports MPEG-dash for on-demand video. That's right, MPEG-dash today, AWS Infinidash tomorrow. What happens when you type a URL into your browser? This is glorious. It's the answer to a common interview question explained in a straightforward way. It's independently useful and doesn't push AWS products. More like this, please. These are the posts that people read and appreciate rather than read because they're frustrated with a service. I cannot stress enough to you just how welcome this is. How Rackspace uses AWS Systems Manager for instance patching across multi-cloud and hybrid environments. AWS admits that multi-cloud is legitimate enough to use in a headline. Personally, I'm a bit outraged that they took the same perspective on Rackspace. Nonprofits save time and money with AWS Lambda. How to set up a function. This headline is only not pants-on-head lunacy if development time is free. The last week in AWS website was moved from a serverless environment to WordPress because my team's time is very much not free, and having a stack that has more than a dozen people on the planet who understand it is important. Lambda's learning curve is still too steep to broadly recommend it like this without significant caveats. New in October, AWS Security Awareness Training and AWS Multi-Factor Authentication available at no cost. There was a presidential summit last week. Microsoft committed to invest $20 billion in security over the next 5 years, and based upon their Azure nonsense, Lord knows they need to. Amazon committed to publish some internal security trainings they had lying around and give a few boxes of old YubiKeys away to new customers. AWS introduces changes to access denied errors for easier permissions troubleshooting. I can't wait for this change. It's bound to be a vast improvement over the current error 500, you suck at computers. And lastly, confidential computing, an AWS perspective. And though it pains me to say it, I think AWS gets it right here. The idea of being able to keep data private when you don't trust your cloud provider is only ever going to be solved by don't use that cloud provider. Keeping data private from some of your own staff, such as sysadmins, is a lot more reasonable, and that's why things like Nitro Enclave exist. And that's what happened last week in AWS. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn, and this is the AWS Morning Brief. I implore you to continue making good choices.
This has been a Humble Pod production. Stay humble.